The Candace Owens folds out. The Candace Owens fallout continues. Andrew Klavan gives his 2 cents, as well as the major news guys. Horrible terrorist attack in Moscow. We will talk about it, y'all. Middle America.
And you ain't black.
I don't know what I said.
The first time ever any...
What are you people?
We're Americans.
We are Americans indeed. My name is Vincent, and this is Middle America with Vin and Story, where we're not left wing, we're not right wing, we're just right. My partner, Crime Soraya, is out. I think we're in 4K. If you see us in 4K, please let me know. We should be having a ball here today, guys. Unfortunately, we've got some unfortunate news. There was a horrible terrorist attack in Moscow. We were told that ISIS was responsible. Here on CNN, we're hearing that 133 people have been declared dead, much more in critical condition. Really horrible situation. Shout out to the big homie Ben Moen coming through in the clutch. Yeah, that we're in a pretty horrible situation here with our friends in Moscow. Now, remember, guys, our government has gone out of their way to demonize Russian people for the last, I don't know, 6 to 8 years. My suspicion is that the vast majority of that demonization is a fallout from their from anti-Trumpism, because you guys remember the whole Russia conspiracy thing, all the people that were telling us that our president was a Russian asset, etc., etc. Remember all that? And now we're just going to pretend like that didn't happen, but that did happen, dear listener. And so because of that, people, especially in America, I think are desensitized to Russian suffering. I didn't see a lot of statements relative to what's going on there from the usual suspects on Twitter. There's really no comments, and there's not a lot of, hey, condolences to the Russian people type of thing. It's just like, hey, it happened to Russians. Really terrible stuff. But anyway, let's check it out. Mr. Putin has an update for us. Remember, it's Vladimir Putin, so we got to take this with a grain of salt. But here is Vladimir Putin's take on what happened in Russia last night going into this morning. Let's check it out.
The massacre near Moscow. A short time ago, Russian state media reported that the suspected attackers are all foreign citizens. ISIS claims responsibility for the rampage on a concert venue yesterday. The death toll rising once again today to at least 133 people. And in his first video message since the attack, President Vladimir Putin called it a barbaric terrorist act. CNN senior international correspondent Fred Pleiken is monitoring developments from Berlin. Fred, good morning to you. Have authorities given any more details about the suspects in this attack?
Well, they have. The Russian authorities certainly have, and it seems to diverge a little bit from what we've been hearing from the...
There's video on Twitter of these guys getting jammed up. I decided I wasn't going to show it because, quite frankly, those dudes are prisoners of war, and you're not supposed to parade prisoners of war in front of a camera. Now, one of these guys, I'm sorry, guys, this is going to be very, very graphic. Shout out to Applejack459. This is going to be very graphic, guys. But one of those guys, they took off his ear and then like force fed him his ear. I mean, it was terrible. So, I'm obviously not going to play that. But the initial story was ISIS just attacked these people, and then a member of ISIS took credit for this attack. The ISIS guys took credit for this attack, supposedly. I found it really suspicious that ISIS would attack Russia. I'm not particularly certain the extent of the beast between the Islamic State and Russia. But we'll continue.
U.S. and also from ISIS itself. Of course, ISIS claimed responsibility for the attack that happened late last night. They offered an additional social media post earlier today. And then you had the U.S. that came out and said that they have absolutely no reason to doubt ISIS's claim of responsibility. Of course, the U.S. coming out very...
Well, the U.S. has no reason to doubt it. Those are the members of our government. But the U.S. populace, I think at this point, anything that comes from y'all, we're just going to default to taking a skeptical eye on. I'm just going to assume that that's going to be the default position for most people. We continue.
Very early. Now, the Russians have a bit of a different take on all of that. They say that they have, at this point in time, apprehended 11 individuals in total. That includes the 4 shooters who they say went into that concert venue yesterday evening outside of Moscow in the town of Krasnogorsk and started shooting.
I can tell you, I saw the video of the attack, and the folks that they apprehended match pretty to the T to the folks that I saw doing this. ISIS, according to Rajin Ryu, apparently took credit for the attack within the hour. I mean, okay, you know, what do you think, Rajin? Do you buy it or what? What do you think?
Up almost everybody that came across their path. The Russians saying some of those people shot at point blank. We're seeing some of the aftermath on our screen right now. The Russians are saying, as you pointed...
As I said, dear listener, you don't need to actually watch these videos. You don't need to watch them to know that it happened. Ragin thinks it's odd, and so do I, buddy. I think it's odd too, bro. I'm not going to lie to you.
That none of those individuals are Russian citizens. They do say, and this comes from Vladimir Putin, who went on Russian state TV earlier today, that apparently these individuals tried to make a getaway to Ukraine. Let's listen in.
They tried to make a getaway to Ukraine. Okay. All right. Can we take a moment to enjoy how the Nord Stream pipeline tube blows America, says we don't know what happened. Now how quickly they confirmed that ISIS did this. So yeah, an extremely complex maritime operation blowing up a pipeline that's been in the works, I don't know, for the last 5-10 years. Very extreme operation, very extremely specialized operation. Our initial response from the State Department was that Putin blew up his own. Putin blew up the Nord Stream 2 himself. That's what we were told and expected to believe, dear listener. So here we go. Now we've got these 130 plus Russians killed, and remember, they're human beings, and it wasn't 143 Vladimir Putins. It was 143 regular people just trying to live life and get through it like me and you. We continue.
All 4 direct perpetrators of the terrorist attack, all those who shot and killed people, were found and detained. They tried to hide and move towards Ukraine, where, according to preliminary data, a window was prepared for them on the Ukrainian side to cross the state border. A total of 11 people were detained.
One of those guys in an interview said that he was paid $100,000 or $500,000 or whatever to do these actions.
So an interesting thing there that Vladimir Putin is saying, allegedly a window was open for them on the other side, as he put it, obviously seeming to mean some sort of opening in the border, which would be remarkable because, of course, that border currently is the front line between Ukraine and the Russians. There's a lot of fighting that's going on in that area. So the Russians apparently trying to somehow, or apparently implicating, or at least linking all of this to Ukraine.
There's no way not to have it implicate Ukraine if the terrorists were planning, after they murdered all those people, were planning to make a getaway from Ukraine. That implies that there's some sort of government cooperation with the government of Ukraine in this activity that just happened. One of the things that's really interesting is that this this situation is almost certainly going to elicit an over-the-top response by Mr. Putin, which would then put the Zelensky back in the attention economy, because right now the attention economy is focused on what's going on in Israel and Gaza, and rightly so. And Mr. Zelensky has not been able to generate the kind of support that he was able to in the previous years, and the money well is drying up. And wouldn't you know it, now we've got a terrorist attack, and the folks did it so sloppily. They wanted to get out via Ukraine. They admitted all this stuff on camera, and so Mr. Putin has got to respond to these guys. Now, look, whether that's just an unfortunate byproduct of these kinds of actions can be one thing, or if that was the ultimate intention of these actions, we will never know, will we? We continue. I don't know what you mean, Lambie. Russia has plenty of enemies. A lot of countries have plenty of enemies, but they're actually locked in a mortal combat with an enemy on their border. And so the idea that, yeah, these guys got secretly funded by some weird shadow group that has a lot of money, and that their primary getaway plan was to go through Ukraine, implicates the Ukrainian government. Don't you think? We continue.
At this point in time having none of it, saying they have absolutely nothing to do with all.
BC says, you think Ukraine is using ISIS mercenaries? That's a big claim. No, I don't believe that they're ISIS mercenaries. When I looked at the interview of these people, they did not look like ISIS fighters to me. ISIS fighters have a specific kind of profile, and they don't match that kind of profile. Secondly, ISIS fighters don't do their killing for money. ISIS fighters hold to an extremely specific set of Islamic Salafism that where money is not the reason you do anything that you do, which is one of the reasons I knew that silly story about how the Russians and the Taliban were working together to target American troops in Afghanistan. I knew that was a lie. Those people don't operate that way. We continue.
All right, Fred Plykin, thank you so much.
If it implicates Ukraine, doesn't that also implicate the U.S.? Well, yes. Not only because of my suspicion of our direct correlation to those people and these actions, but also due to the fact that we're in the middle of damn near everything relative to Ukraine for the last 10 to 15 years. So there's that. Here we go. Now here's Lambie. There are Armenians, Georgians, Belarusians, Chechens, Russians fighting Russia. Well, again, the Belarusians love Russia, number one. Number two, again, these guys are at war with each other right now. The Ukrainians have demonstrated they have no problem with terrorism and using terrorism against their own people, much less against Russian nationals. We continue. Wait a second, Vin. You seem to think ISIS has a religious standing to their extremism? No way. Oh, yes. Yes. You know, there are some people whose religion tells them certain things about people who are not part of their religion, and as such, they kind of look at the world in like different classes, like regular people here and then people in their group over there. So there's a lot of that going around. We continue.
Much, and I should say good evening to you. It's 5 o'clock there. Thanks so much. All right, let's bring in CNN national security analyst Steve Hall and CNN chief law enforcement and intelligence analyst John Miller. Great to see you.
Yeah, BC. Yeah, there are mercs. One of them talked about getting 500. I don't know what the currency is. It's LP or something like that. Somebody called him up and offered him 500K. I didn't post a video because it showed, I mean, this guy's a POW and he fell into the hands of the Russians, right? So you can kind of do the math there.
Both gentlemen. So Steve, you first. ISIS, quick to claim responsibility for this attack, but we heard Putin suggest that the suspects were trying to flee into Ukraine. He obviously wants to make some sort of correlation with Ukraine, perhaps, added justification for Russia's invasion of that country.
Yeah, I don't I don't think that Mr. Putin believes that blaming Ukraine for this attack is going to, in any way, shape, or form, shift sentiments for people relative to the invasion of Ukraine. If you can look at the kind of provocation and intimidation that the United States has done to this country for the past 3.5 decades, if you can look at all that information and say, this terrorist attack is not going to push you over the line. Okay? So I don't think that was in Mr. Putin's mind. We continue.
Yeah, Fred, it's worth remembering that whatever comes out of the Kremlin serves no other purpose than to support Vladimir Putin and the Kremlin's policies. So whether it's...
Agree. I just wish Americans understood that about their government as well. I'm sure it was those druggy, gay, Nazi, Jew, Muslim, Ukrainians that done it. I don't know, Lambie. I don't know. I don't know. Do you believe that that it was also Putin that destroyed Nord Stream 2? You believe that as well? We continue.
Numbers of casualties, whether it's who committed this terrorist act, whether they were going to Ukraine or not, which frankly makes zero sense whatsoever from pretty much any perspective, unless you're trying to protect Vladimir Putin from embarrassment for not listening to intelligence that was provided by the United States and probably others. There's really nothing to believe there. So
there's nothing to believe there. We can't believe it's Vladimir Putin and he's Russian. You know, it's Russian people, Russians, isn't that what he said? Russian scum, Keith Olbermann. We can't believe what them people have to say.
Yeah, it seems to make sense to me that it would be a terrorist element. The United States government doesn't see any inconsistencies.
Why? What beef do they, what beef does ISIS have with Russia? Let me ask you a question, dear listener. ISIS is supposedly a Salafist, hyper-Islamic terrorist organization. There are 30,000 Gazans that have been killed, all Muslim, for them, 98% of them are Muslim, 13,000 children. The UN is saying that we've got a 1 through 5 sort of stages of starvation. Like 30% of the infant populace is like at stage 5, which means that even if we got them ham sandwiches now, it would be over with for them. And so it's too late. So that 30,000 number is about to jump exponentially here in the next couple of weeks, and months. I don't know, guys. I don't know. But if I was ISIS and I was an Islamic terrorist organization in the Middle East, why would I deploy people to go after the Russians and commit this crazy terrorist attack against the Russians when we've got a glaring giant elephant in the room with Israel? I just need somebody to explain that to me. Because I'm not a Salafist Muslim, but I want to go over there and do work. So I don't understand. You are a terrorist organization. You have killed hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, thousands of people in the worst way possible. You're in the Middle East. You're going to travel all the way, or you're going to go and work out. That kind of operation is extremely complex because you plan the money, how you send the money, bank accounts, tracing, things like that. That's a very, 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 very involved operation. You're going to do that to attack the Russians while the Israelis are killing thousands upon tens of thousands and thousands of people. Does that make sense to you? It doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I'm just asking questions, dear listener.
With it being ISIS. So, my inclination is to believe any other source before you believe the Kremlin.
And John, in fact, the U.S. and other Western governments had warned Russia.
That's pretty much the posture that most of us have now relative to the news. That's pretty much our posture with you guys.
Earlier this month about the possibility of an ISIS attack. Putin labeled the warning outright blackmail during a speech earlier this week. So help folks understand, even though Russia is an adversary of the U.S., America adheres by this so-called duty to warn.
So the duty to warn, Doc.
All right, guys. You guys are about to hear some of the craziest. Duty to warn, right? So if we've got intel that a terrorist attack is going to happen in another country, we've got a duty to let the people know that. Good night. So if that's the case, Hamas had such a complex encryption system that they were somehow able to circumvent our intelligence apparatus relative to October 7th. They did a sea-air combined land assault. That's again a very, very difficult thing to organize and execute, which would have taken a lot of planning, a lot of time on Wi-Fi, et cetera, where you could have mined that information and known exactly when and where and who the main players were in the attack. We all know that Mr. Netanyahu knew beforehand about the attack. We also know that now we could say that Mohammed Atta and the rest of those guys were CIA assets. Being a CIA asset doesn't necessarily mean they were an agent. That's a different story. But the fact of the matter is, I think like most of you guys are looking at this with a little bit of a side eye. Side eye. We continue.
Applies particularly in terrorism, where there's information that one intelligence service may come into that means people may be killed in another place. And even if that place is not a U.S. ally, even if it's a hostile foreign power, the duty to warn is to protect innocent people, no matter what the politics. And so,
because we are so concerned about innocent life in America, can't you tell?
U.S. intelligence passed the information they had about terrorist chatter about an upcoming attack in Russia. And then on March 7th, for Americans in the region, actually posted that on the embassy website. And yes, Fred, as you said, Vladimir Putin came out and said this was an attempt to destabilize, Russians' feelings of safety. Yesterday was the fog of war. Today, what we have is the fog of propaganda. So let's...
So he says this is a terrorist attack. Let's hear the propaganda again from Mr. Putin. Imagine you wake up, 130 of your countrymen being killed. Here we go. What else is Putin supposed to tell his countrymen?
Is to protect innocent people, no matter what the politics. And so, U.S. intelligence passed the information they had about terrorist chatter about an upcoming attack in Russia. And then on March 7th, for Americans in the region, actually posted that on the embassy website. And yes, Fred, as you said, Vladimir Putin came out and said this was an attempt to destabilize, Russians' feelings of safety. Yesterday was the fog of war. Today, what we have is the fog of propaganda.
Okay, so terrorism, one of the stated goals of terrorism and one of the ways that we define terrorism is the destabilization of the social order. You essentially hold a community or a country hostage to these kinds of threats until your specific demands are met. That's terrorism, and that's what Vlad Putin said. But Vlad can't say that because now that's also propaganda. We continue. Holy shit.
So let's break it down. For Vladimir Putin, it's going to be very important to try and leverage this not into a massive intelligence failure, massive security failure, confused response, but rather to make this Russia's October 7th. Innocent people slaughtered.
What did I say? What did I say? What did I say? I said Zelensky is not getting enough attention because, the Gaza stuff, the genocide that's happening that we're funding. And so this situation now is going to work very well for him because Mr. Putin has to respond. He will respond, and it's going to be an asymmetrical response. They lost 133 people. I guarantee you the Russians double and triple that, and they're horrible for doing so. But you watch what the media does. You watch. The same media that's justifying the genocide of these people, of these Semitic people over there in Palestine. You watch how they respond when Mr. Putin does an asymmetric response to this terrorist attack. They lost 133 people. I guarantee you he does something where 500 people bite it. And then our media is going to say, look at this asymmetrical response and completely ignore what's happening in Gaza. We continue.
And who better to push that blame to, even tacitly, than to the Ukraine.
And look at the way these guys are talking, by the way. Look at the sarcasm, the lightheartedness. 133 people just died, bro. This is how much we've dehumanized these Russian people. You can tell they just don't care. All they're worried about now is how Putin's going to spin it. They don't care about the loss of life because it's Russian life. You guys got to understand, man. If you're an American, you live in a culture that has a stratified justice system as who's valuable, who's not. We continue.
So we're seeing that unfold now in a mix of propaganda, but also information coming from official channels and Putin himself. From the U.S. standpoint, ISIS claimed responsibility for this through its official channels, put out more material today, and has a history of animosity towards Russia, going back to the Russian bombing of its camps and fighters in Syria on behalf of Bashar Assad, its actions in the Caucasus.
Bashar al-Assad, that whole situation happened 5 years ago. We got an ongoing genocide right now. I think the ongoing genocide is a much more approximate issue in the Muslim world than the beef that they had fighting Bashar al-Assad, which honestly was an intramural discussion between Shia and Sunni, but that's a different story.
Against the Chechens and other Muslims in the region. So it fits, but we're going to see a tug of war in the propaganda space right now.
Interesting. And Steve, it's been barely a week.
It's fascinating to me that Americans don't believe that they're propagandized. Everybody else gets propagandized except for Americans. We truly believe that shit, bro. We really believe that everybody else is propagandized except for us. We're so smart. We're so smart, dear listener. You have no idea how smart we are. We're so damn smart. We're just smarter than everybody, bro. That's just a fact, y'all. We're just smarter than everybody. All these other people, they're so dumb. They're sitting there getting gaslit by their country. They're so dumb. They're not like us. We continue.
Since Putin was elected to his 5th term as president, he has long branded himself as a strongman leader, able to keep peace and order. So how does this attack affect that perception to his people and his defiance against believing that issued threat?
Yeah, Fred, I think this is what Vladimir Putin is most concerned about in this attack. He's certainly not really concerned about, the loss of Russian life.
Yeah, look at you. Look at you. You look really broken up about Russian life, bro. You look really broken up about it.
If that were the case, he wouldn't be sending tens and thousands, hundreds of thousands of young Russian men to die for no good reason on
Yeah, he just sending them Russian boys out there to die for no good reason. We didn't stack up a bunch of high-tech weapons right at his border. We didn't do that. We didn't do that. If he really cared about Russian people, then he wouldn't have went in there. So obviously he doesn't care about Russian people. But, he doesn't care as much as you. Look at you. I can see how broken up you are for these people that died over there.
Ukrainian front line. So that's not his main concern. His main concern is that he's got to deal with the Russian people. And the deal goes something like this. Russian society is prepared to say, look, we don't need all of these freedoms that they have in the West. These things that you guys call elections, they're not really elections.
That's right. Russian people, they're all fascists. They don't even believe in voting. They just elected this man the 5th or 6th time. Feel how you want to feel about it. To me, if I was a Russian, I would love Vladimir Putin. If I was a Russian, I'd have like 500 Vladimir Putin stickers all over my house. Because finally somebody stood up to these fucking Americans, bro. That'd give me a lot of national pride. Good God, we continue.
Russia, but that's fine. We're not going to speak out too strongly against that. And in return for a limiting of those...
Right, because those Russian people, they voted for Putin, so obviously they don't love freedom like us. God almighty.
Liberties that we're used to in the West, Putin is supposed to provide security.
What liberties are we used to in the West? What liberties do we enjoy in the West that people over there in Russia don't enjoy? What the hell are you talking about? What happens to people when they what freedom and liberty did we have a couple years ago when the healthcare people shut us all in, held us all prisoners in our own homes, made people get vaccinations against their will, all type of shit. And to this moment, you guys won't tell us the actual truth about all this shit. What are you talking about? We got a specific party line, and if you violate or you deviate that in any way, shape, or form, now you got a problem. Weirdos.
So when he fails to do that, as he clearly did in this case, and it's made worse by the fact that he knew about it beforehand from intelligence, that could cause the Russian people to say, oh, hold on a second. How come we're being repressed when we try to protest? How come people like Navalny are dying and all these resources are going to control these so-called opposition forces, and we can't even go to a concert without getting slaughtered? That gets into that, it starts to erode that agreement between Putin and Russian society, and that's what I think he's doing.
Wow. It looks like a result of this terrorist attack in this guy's mind would hurt Putin in the eyes of his the people that just voted. You heard it out of this man's own mouth. He believes that this terrorist attack is going to harm Putin and help Ukraine. That's what the guy just said. So ISIS was out there thinking to themselves, you know, we were beefing with these boys about 5 years ago. We weren't really beefing with Russia. We were beefing with Bashar al-Assad, who's the Pharaoh of this Ummah, because he's Shia. And you saw the horrible torture, you know, the Rafadim, blah, 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 blah. You guys don't know about this stuff in the intramural Islamic debates. But that's not what's important. What's important is what this guy just said. These Russian people, they're now going to look at Putin with the side eye. They're not going to blame Ukraine and us. Nope. They're gonna say, oh, ISIS did this to us. These guys tried to flee to Ukraine. That's just a never mind the terrorist behind the window or the curtain or whatever. God almighty. How dumb do you think we are?
Got to be very worried about right now.
All very powerful. All right. Steve Hall, John Miller.
It looks to me like this ISIS terrorist attack was a wonderful assist to Mr. Zelensky. And a wonderful assist to folks in the intelligence community who would theorize that Mr. Putin would lose some of the credibility he has built up with these people. Because right now, Mr. Putin's a legendary folk hero status at this point with those Russian people. So the entire point is he launched this invasion. And what he sold to his people was these motherfuckers are bringing weapons of mass destruction right to our fucking border. On top of that, we got people, our countrymen in the Donbass who are getting shelled and killed for the last 13 years. So I'm going to go in there in order to protect Russian people. And the Russians, in spite of the fact that we tried to destroy them economically, we tried to ruin them economically. Those Russian people, they stood strong through it. And they looked to their leader and they coalesced together and they made the shit happen, even though we tried to isolate them on the stage of the world. And so now this terrorist attack is supposed to get to the heart of the justification for the initial invasion, which is, I'm here to protect you guys. I'm doing this to protect you guys. But now we've got a terrorist attack inside. Now keep in mind, the Ukrainians have attacked multiple times on Russian soil. They killed the vice president's daughter or something like a year and a half ago. They killed her in in Russia. So there have been already multiple attacks against the Russians by the Ukrainians and the Americans. If you believe that it was anybody else other than the Naval Special Warfare Development Group that blew up Nord Stream 2, then we have been committing acts of terror against them. We have been committing acts of economic warfare against them. That's what we did with Nord Stream 2, etc., etc. But now we're supposed to believe out of nowhere it was ISIS. ISIS, they were sitting around, they said, you know what? Those Israelis are sworn enemy. I don't know if you guys know this about Islamic theology, the specific Islamic theology of ISIS, but I had to. ISIS had a very, 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 very specific ethos. And the idea was they held to an eschatological position that in order for the Mahdi and Jesus and Al-Dajjal and Ma'juj and Ra'juj These are all end time characters in their specific Islamic theology. In order for that to happen, there had to be a time of immense distress in the Muslim world, the Ummah. And there was going to be a time when the entire world turns against the Ummah. And it is in that context that the Mahdi then comes down and does war with Dajjal. And then Jesus comes down and defeats Dajjal. And then Ya'juj and Ma'juj show up, etc., etc. And the culmination of all of this is when Jewish people are resisting the Mahdi and Jesus, and the believers go out to fight. That's when it said, hey, there's a Jew behind me. A rock will speak to you and say, hey, there's a Jew behind me, come and kill him. So the point of what I'm making is ISIS is an extremely focused group that have a very extreme purpose. Their purpose was to turn the entire world against Islam so that they could kind of force the hand of Providence to bring about the end of the world. Okay? That was their ultimate mission. That's the reason why they shot so many provocative videos and things of that nature. Okay? And that's the reason why the Tali, Al-Qaeda, etc., were working side by side with Americans to clear that place of those people. That's a fact. Okay? So my point is, ISIS are extremely motivated by Islamic eschatology, and Russia is not in Islamic end-time theology, but Israel is. So again, I ask you, why did they not attack Israel instead of Russia? Somebody give me a logical, rational reason why ISIS would select an action that benefits Ukraine and the U.S. and hurts Vladimir Putin. Why? But they're not worried about Israel. Israel, who literally that death toll is probably going to double and triple once these starvations start coming out. These people are suffering. I think a big chunk of the world would actually stay silent or even silently cheer on ISIS if they did some sort of operation and killed a bunch of IDF. Like, that's where the world is at right now. The world is looking at the Israelis as if they were ISIS because they're just as brutal and horrible and sadistic, by the way. Some of those ISIS people did some really terrible shit. And they had to, there's a substance called khat. It's basically an opioid. Very big in Somalia, other places. But a lot of these guys in ISIS, when they're about to do their shit, they get all fucked up on khat. And that's why you hit these guys and shit like that. They don't go down until they're dead. The people, the bravery is the Islamic shoulder. Stop it! Them boys is high as hell. That's why they could be 2 feet away from you with that kalesh and miss you. People are like, oh, it's a miracle. It's not a miracle. This dude's fucked up on khat, bro. That's why. But again, my point is, guys, the Salafists just gave the Americans and the Ukrainians a wonderful gift. And by extension, the Israelis, because now that we're talking about this and the terrorist attack that happened, and obviously we're going to be talking about Vladimir Putin's obviously asymmetrical response, which, as Applejack said, I'm condemning before it happens. He's going to respond, and he's going to respond in a way that is not eye for eye, tooth for tooth. He's going to go overboard. And he sucks for doing. You suck as a person for doing that, Mr. Putin. But you remember how you felt after 9/11? Them Russian people are going to want some blood. They're not going to care. And now we're going to be talking about Vladimir Putin or whatever. So when the UN finally releases a number, it's like 60, 70,000 dead pallies and, I don't know, probably another, 18, 19,000 dead children. We're going to be talking about Putin bad, Russia bad, blah, 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 blah. You see how that works? They somehow were able to get us. All right, guys. Salafism is a Sunni fundamentalist movement adhering to a very strict theological view of Islam based on the beliefs and practice of the early Salafists. Yeah, and within Salafism, the technical term is that ISIS and their ilk has been labeled as Kharaj. The Kharaj. And they were a group of people in sort of the second Islamic generation that essentially were hyper fundamentalist, started massacring, killing Muslims, beheading them, all type of shit. And actually, was Umar bin al-Khattab and the rest of them boys had to strap up and overcome those people. Okay, so this is a very specific strain of Islam that has been around essentially since the beginning, but has been marginalized by the majority of the mainstream for obvious reason. They keep killing people. How does this benefit Ukraine? I don't see it. The way it benefits Ukraine is that Mr. Putin is about to respond in a way that we all agree is going to be not commensurate with the crime, right? The guys in Hamas, okay, killed 1,000 people on October 7th, and the Israelis responded by killing 30,000 of theirs. So that's an X30, right? I think Mr. Putin is going to go X10 on this. And when he does that, then Mr. Zelensky is going to be back in front of us asking for money again. And the gullible American constituency, when they watch on TV and they see the blonde-haired, blue-eyed people crying, they're going to go right back to saying, hey, maybe we should give these people some money. That's how it benefits them. That's how it benefits them. Because they get to be the number one victim again, instead of the people who are getting genocided. All right, guys, I got to get out of here. I've got some important things to wrap up. I think the word of the day is from the big homie BC. People should not kill people. What a freaking concept. What a concept, dear listener, that we should not kill each other. What do you think, guys? You think that maybe he's onto something? We shouldn't kill one another? Yeah, I think he's right. I think we ought to stop killing each other. That's what I think we ought to do. All right, dear listener. Love your neighbor. Take care of each other. Middle America, we are the media. Till next time, guys. I'm going to be trying to shoot every single day. And by the way, if I see you retweet this, all you Twitter watchers, if you retweet this, I might get you a special prize, a Middle America shirt, a Middle America hoodie. Maybe you can suggest, maybe we'll get you the ability to suggest a topic. Okay, that's what. That's where we're at, guys. I'm gonna be trying to shoot every day for a significant amount of time. I'm really gonna lock in and really try to grow this channel. Especially as the elections come up. Wait, you have hoodies? Yes, we do have Middle America hoodies, and I got to tell you, they're badass. They're bad. Even our kids wear them. I'm not gonna lie to you. Even our kids wear them. Like, it's some badass shit. And by the way, if you haven't already, you need to subscribe to Applejack, because he gets you all the, I mean, to be honest with you, I copy a lot of my shit from Applejack, or a lot of the conversations that me and him have in text at 3 or 4 in the morning end up in a talking point of conversation somewhere. Much love to all you beautiful people. I gotta take care of a birthday now. Love you all. Love your neighbor. Take care of each other. Middle America, we are the media. Till next time, guys. We're also I'm going to create some sort of communication portal where you guys get on Facebook.com/America Middle. You don't have to get into the jihad on the page, but you can contact me directly there. And if you have breaking news, hit me up there. And if I get it, I'll shoot on it immediately. I'm really, really serious about like to the minute news. We're going to be covering the shit as it goes along. It's going to be very good. And we need the Village Discord. Yeah, I'll get that to you as well. Much love to all you beautiful people. I got to get out of here.